Hello, well, welcome to the season of storms, and not just meteorological ones either, obviously financial. Now, we've just had our quarterly asset allocation meeting, and now it's time to work out what we should be doing. This is key time. Tom, we were both there. It was a fascinating meeting, but...
It was one of the most lively ones that we've had in a very long time, Justin.
Okay, but what are the key areas that we were looking at? We were trying to divide it up into 4 different profiles, weren't we?
Yeah, what we've been doing is we've been trying to, as many other people in the world have been trying to do, to decipher what it is that we're looking at. And we've painted 4 different scenarios, and they are different scenarios. And what we do is we assign a probability to them, and then based upon the probable outcomes, then we try to set the portfolios.
So what was the worst?
The worst one, I guess we'll call it Armageddon.
Oh, that's cheery.
Yeah,
and what sort of percentage did that have on it?
Pretty low,
Okay.
pretty low. 10 to 15% type scenario Armageddon. And what Armageddon looks like probably is triggered by the Europeans not getting their act together and winding up with maybe a disorderly default for the Greeks, possibly with an exit from the euro and contagion into the banking system. And then the contagion from the banking system then widens out to Italy and to Spain, and then it widens out to the rest of the world, and then we all want to go away and hide.
So that's the worst one. Talk us through the others as they hopefully get better.
The second one was, we'll call it doing a Japan, if you will. And that is sort of the lost decade scenario where we enter the low growth, low return world that we are expecting anyway, but it winds up being gradually deflationary over the course of the coming decade. And that's a very hard scenario to recover from, as we've seen, indeed, from Japan.
But can you get a bit better from that?
Well, the central bankers have been fighting very, very hard to avoid that situation because they think that they have an answer to inflation, but they know that they don't have an answer to deflation. So the third scenario, and actually the one that we think is the most likely, is the muddle through scenario, where the politicians take us to the edge of the abyss, but just back before we fall off. And then to the edge of the abyss again, and then back again. Then to the edge of the abyss, and then back again. And we've seen it with Greece. We've seen it with the U.S. debt ceiling. We're going to see it over and over again.
And what sort of timeline would that have on it? I mean, is this a 10-year scenario?
Well, you're looking at certainly at multiple years, whether it's 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years, it sort of remains to be seen. And it's probably a matter of degree. But the differentiation, the major differentiation between our muddle through scenario and the Japan scenario is that in the medium term, meaning say 3 years out, 4 years out, you wind up inflating because of all the loose monetary policy that we will then have had for 5 or 6 years.
So we want inflation, but just not too much inflation.
Yeah, indeed, inflation could, at the end of the day, become part of the solution, provided, as you say, it's not hyperinflation.
Okay, and then the top end, it was the
the top end, I guess we call it the Great Escape, and that infers that miracle of miracles, the policymakers actually get their act together, come up with something sensible, and announce it quickly and forcefully and believably.
Right.
And
we discounted that one.
We put a very low probability on that one, yes. And we don't mean to be cynical about it, but the problem that we have right now is that much of the West, where these decisions need to get made, are in coalition governments. We've got a coalition here in the UK. Angela Merkel in Germany's got a coalition. With the split Congress in the States, you can argue that they've got a coalition. So where the decisions need to be made decisively, the government structure right now probably doesn't lend itself to that. Coalitions, you're probably going to get bad decisions slowly, or mediocre decisions slowly, not necessarily bad ones.
Okay, so we know the key problems in terms of what's happening with the euro. We know the problems, what's happening in the States with its deficit. But actually, how does this then impact on what happens to the companies that we might wish to invest in?
Well, we have a real responsibility. This is a point in time where people like us have to earn our money, Justin. We're talking about people's pensions. They need to live on this money. We need to make judgments that are sound judgments and that are mindful of the risks that could materialize should politicians make very, very poor decisions. So our central muddle through scenario is where our portfolios are going to be positioned. But if I could make the analogy of being in a room where there's a cocktail party going on, we'd be near the exit. Because if the bad decisions start to materialize, we'd like to be able to get out quickly.